Thank you so much for joining us at the BYU Family History webinar series. Um, we are grateful for your patience as we had a couple of technical difficulties um, at 4 o'clock. Thank you so much for being patient. I'm Marin and I'll be your host for this webinar. We'd love to know where you're listening from and how you heard about today's webinar. You can enter that into the polls on the left of the screen. Our next webinar will be on Friday the 10th at 4 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And that will be with Katie Barnes. She's giving a presentation entitled Working as a Professional Genealogist. If you have any problems hearing with the sound or with your screen or anything, once we head over to the presentation, you can comment in the questions and comments boxes there. For today's webinar, we are pleased to hear from Simone Russell, who will be giving a presentation entitled Using Social Media for Interactive Family Histories. Simone is a graduate of the BYU Family History program. She's also a graduate of the University of Massachusetts in Boston and has a master's degree in history. She also recently published in the American Ancestors, which is put out by the New England Historical Genealogy Society in Boston, and has also published in the Journal of Arizona History. Simone loves Cajun food and her ancestors. And as we are setting things up for Simone's presentation, I'll just point out once again, right here on the left side of the screen, there's the question and answer box. All your questions will go in there, and then if you have any comments or insights, that'll go at the bottom left of the screen. Please feel welcome to make those comments and insights. And as I get just one more thing set up, we will have Simone on in just 1 second.
Marin, and thank you everybody for participating. I'm sorry we had a few more technical difficulties. So this webinar is about how I have used social media to share family history with my family in an interactive way. So as you can see on the screen, I'm going to talk about how the idea sprouted to share with my family the diary of my great-grandmother, and I just stated the connection to the subject of the blog, but also who the blog was originally meant for and what it's about and when I started it and why I chose to do a blog, why I chose Facebook, and how I've found and added members and then additional features that are offered on the Facebook blog. So how this idea sprouted. This idea sprouted when I realized that my grandma had transcriptions of her mother's diaries, and I've always loved reading my ancestors' diaries for the gold mines that they are. My great-grandma, Juanita Stout Ray, kept a diary for 40 years from 1913 until her death in through 1953. She died in January 1954. So my grandma, Lurleen Ray Russell, transcribed them, and she's the only living child of her parents at 96. So I read the diaries and I decided to share the diaries with all of Juanita's descendants. And she has quite a bit because she had 7 children that grew up to have families of their own. So my connection to the subject is here. I'm at the bottom, and then it's my dad's mother's mother. So my dad is Gary, his mother is Lurleen, and it's her parents, her mother that wrote the diary. Who is the blog about and for? So it's about the daughter of a Mormon polygamist who was born in Utah. My great grandma was born in southern Utah, raised in Mexico in the Mexican colonies. It's about a mother who raised her 9 children in Mesa and Gilbert during Arizona during the Roaring 20s, the Great Depression, and the war years. I mentioned she had 7 children that raised their own families because she lost her oldest in 1918 during the influenza epidemic, and she lost her youngest child in 1941 when the youngest was 8 to kidney failure. And it's for anyone interested in Juanita Stout Ray and the people that were in her life. What is this blog? It's a daily blog. I post on it. I try to post on it every day, and I'm usually successful. So it changes. The blog has been changing from year to year. I started it in September of 2016. At that time, it started out with me just posting something cool I'd read that day in her diary. But in November, I would focus on entries that talked about Thanksgiving, and then in December, it was Christmas, like Christmas preparations. Each day was something about Christmas. In 2017, each month had a theme. So, for example, July was my great grandma. She was the theme of July since she was born July 4th. And each day I pretty much blogged about her, what she wrote about herself in July, her birthday month. And then her husband was born in November, so I made him the theme for November. My great grandma's mother, so my great great grandmother was born in June, so she was the theme for June. And Juanita had I mentioned 2 deceased children, so they were December's theme since I had no birthdays in December, and they both died. One died in November, one died in December, so I made them the theme for December. And then her other 8 children were the themes for the other 8 months, either in their birth month or maybe birth month of one of their children if their birth month was taken, which 3 children were born in March, so I had to spread that around. In 2018, I do 100 years ago today, if she wrote on that date, which she did write 100 years ago today. So when I post, it'll be what she wrote 100 years ago today. And I mentioned that for some missing 1918 entries, I do 101 years ago today and 98 years ago today. And I also post that date, today's date for 1946 and 1950, because those diaries have recently been found. The 1946 is the original, and the 1950 is a transcription. Okay, so when did I start this blog? I haven't even mentioned the name of it, but it's the John and Juanita Stout Ray family blog on Facebook, and I started it September 24th, 2016. Why a blog? Just because I'm sure that few, if any, of her descendants have read her diaries. And a blog is a fun and creative way to share all aspects about my great grandmother, her children, her extended family, because she talks about nieces, nephews, in-laws, neighbors, church members, just all kinds of people, even athletes and politicians, but they're in bite-sized daily pieces. Why Facebook? I have tried to do a regular website blog, and Facebook is just easier to start and maintain. It's free, and it's easy to find people on Facebook to invite them to join it and to communicate with them so that they know who I am. Since I'm on Facebook, I have my own Facebook page. They can see who I'm friends with and see who I am, and then I just add family members to the blog. How do I add family members to the blog? I've noticed that more and more family books that have been published are being put online that list descendants. And I've listed two books here that I've used. One is the Petter Mortensen Families book that has births as recently as 2000, and this covers my great grandpa Ray's mother's side. Our Pioneer Ancestors is by my great grandmother's brother. Is published in 1944, and it lists most of her siblings' children. So her youngest sister was only married for 7 years when it was published. I can show you an example of the Mortensen book. And just we get to that, I'll just show you my family since there's living people in the book. But here's an example. Lillian Ray is my grandma with her birth date, and my grandpa that she married and their marriage date and place. This is just an example of a book that I found, my family book that I found online. He died in, my grandpa, Cy Russell, died in 2001 in Mesa. And then my dad is their first child. So you see one Gary Russell with his birth date and birthplace. My mom, their marriage date and place, and her marriage or her birth date and place. Then you see me. I'm the oldest, so my birth date and place, and then my four younger siblings, their birth dates and places. So I use this information if I was looking for, say, and it's usually easy to find somebody who has a less common name. So the last person, if I was starting to look for people, the last person I would want to start with is Benjamin Ray Russell, because Russell is a common last name, and then Benjamin's a common first name. So that is not what I'd want to start with. I'd want to start with Pawnee Russell um, because that my parents wanted to make her spelling different. So, and really nobody's name is Pawnee. She was named after an Indian tribe. So, I would just look for Pawnee, and then her husband's name is on there. So Pawnee Duncan or Pawnee Russell Duncan. I'd look for her, and I'd pretty much know if I found her that was her. And then once I go into, if I'm able to look at her friends, then I could look for a Ben Russell, Shawnee Allred, because Shawnee married Spencer Todd Allred. And then I could look for Brigham. I could start with Brigham because that's also not a very common name. So that's how I found people to join the Facebook page. So that's how I found and added members to my blog. And the next slide continues talking about that. For deceased descendants that maybe aren't listed in that book, I've Googled them looking in online obituaries, findagrave.com, which has obituaries sometimes, and just doing Google searches. There are so many websites out there that, like family websites. So if you can find a family website, depending on how earnestly you want to find distant relatives, that's how I've done it. And I just kind of went through this, how I add members to the blog. I search Facebook for the names of living descendants. I showed you how I found the names to look for, starting with least common names. And then once a relative is located, finding other family members is often simplified. And sometimes I would go to the About page. If you're familiar with Facebook, there's the About page, and sometimes it lists family members there. And then sometimes you can find family members in their pictures on Facebook. So, additional features of a Facebook blog. We're going to go to my Facebook page and talk about that. Okay. So I took a blog one time, or I took a poll because I had a question if the members, and you can see on this blog that I have 593 members, so that's quite a few. I was just wondering if they were interested in going public or staying a private blog where um, if somebody wants to join, they have to request to join. And most of the members requested to stay private. I'm looking, I haven't actually looked for the blog or the blog, the poll, but let's see if I can find it. Yeah. Well, so I took it on May 11th, and it was kind of just a trial, but this is the question: would you like to see this blog go public or stay private? And 8 people commented, and here's the poll right here. So you can see that 3 plus 23, so 26 people requested to stay private, and 4 plus 3 people requested said that they'd like to go public. And then here's some comments. So that's just one of the options of this Facebook page, or a feature, I should say. But so Lurleen Russell is my 96-year-old grandma, and Jordan Palmer is her sister's grandson. Anyway, so that's one of the options. We're gonna go back to the so yeah, we just went over that. Taking a poll of what your members are interested in or their opinions or preferences. Adding additional features of a Facebook blog, adding videos. I posted 2 videos to the blog that I took of Hinckley, Utah, where Juanita lived and taught from 1912 to 1914. It's just a video. Hinckley is a very small town, I think like 300 people, so I think the church building is pretty much the highlight of it. I don't know. It's just a very small town. And then additional features of a Facebook blog. You can add photos. I can show you that. I post photos when I have want to show somebody that I'm talking about. But I've also posted when my great grandma has mentioned going to the movies. I've posted pictures of movie posters that were contemporary, so that they might have seen. I've posted pictures of athletes that she talks about. I've posted pictures of gravestones and obituaries, newspaper articles that she's mentioned in. When she was starting to teach, she was mentioned as one of the teachers at Millard Academy in Hinckley. I posted a picture of somebody churning butter while reading because she mentioned my grandma churning butter while reading. So I just posted a picture of what that looked like. And Wada's Academy, where she completed high school in Mexico. So we will just go, I'll show you those pictures. Okay, so, oh, here's the videos option. And I won't bore you with the video, but you can see that you can just go to video if you want to go. And these 2-minute videos are of Hinckley. If you see this building right here, this is, well, I guess it's where you're just going to go, but this is, I took video of the school, which is now a private house, where my great grandma taught. This is about as exciting as it gets. There's a school right there. So my great grandma taught in that school from 1912 until 1914 when she got married. This is the church that I mentioned that. I think this is pretty much downtown Hinckley. And it's now a private house, so I wasn't able to go inside. I'm going to try to go back. There we go. Yeah. So the photos. This is my great grandma Juanita. This is her husband. Hopefully, I can find a better picture. This is Verda, her oldest daughter, and then Noni, and then my grandma Lurleen, and then Irving, and okay. So these are the pictures. I post pictures of just people mentioned that's not even family, siblings, my great grandma, copy of my great grandma's diary, her daughter, just I think this is a this is a World War II registration, I think. It says registration up here. I have so many pictures on here, I can't remember what they all are, but as you can see, I have lots of pictures. This is where my great grandma worked during World War II. This was built for the British Air Force. Great Britain had little training ground. They were close to the enemy, so they established some flight schools across the United States where we had better weather, more space to train their pilots. And so one of the places that they built was in Mesa. And so my great grandma worked here. She cleaned these planes right here. She fell off one of them one time and got hurt, but she did that for about a year. And this is contemporary. This is at the time that she did it. And she might have known these people because she would have cleaned that plane. And these are the actual planes above the actual ground where she worked. So so I just try to make things alive for the people that read this. More pictures of the school, only this is the school now where she taught. And people love pictures. I always get more views when I post pictures. My great grandma, like I said, was. So we'll go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so we covered the pictures pretty thoroughly. I showed you that. Then additional features. Well, I guess I'm continuing to talk about the pictures that I posted that you just saw. Group insights, we can go to that. So it can show you how many people have joined in the last 28 days, give you an idea of how many posts, comments, reactions in the last 28 days. Top contributors, show active members, which I think is interesting. So we'll just go there right now. So group insights is under photos. So there's a little graph here. Looks like I've had a 3% gain in new members. 11 in the last 28 days have requested to join, and they've been approved. I've declined 0. I've blocked 0. Going back up to the top. My favorite part is, I guess there's been a 46% reduction in posts. My favorite is more engagement details. So in the last 28 days, there's been 26 posts, which is a 30% reduction. What I like to see is how many active members there are. So there's 347 active members. And then just kind of more graphs. And I also like this down here. It'll mention a post and how many comments there were, how many likes there were, and how many people viewed it. So for a while I was getting over 200 views. It looks like that's gone down a little bit. Maybe people are busy with their summers, but so this one had 168 views. So that's a fun feature. And we'll just go back to the presentation. Okay, so you just saw a fun feature of a Facebook blog. Let's see, I skipped up a little bit. So we talked about what you can see for the last 28 days, the activity. Looks like we're coming to the end here. So looks like this last slide, you can see who was added, when, and by who, and see who removed themselves. So let's actually go to that option. So moderate group right here. You can see who I've approved or added. So approved means they request to join. Added means they're already my Facebook friend, and I just she opted out. That's fine. So anyway, some people can, if they are added, they can just exit the group. They don't have to be a part of it. But here's somebody else who did. They asked to join it, and then I approved it, and then they decided they didn't want to be a member. So that is my presentation, and I guess if anybody has any questions.
All right, thank you so much, Simone, for your presentation. And if anybody has any questions, now would be the time to ask them. You can ask them in the comment and insight box or the Q&A box above. And also, Simone wanted to ask if any of our viewers are interested in making their own page like Simone has, where you share stories about your ancestors with that ancestor's descendants. If you guys are interested in an in-depth how-to webinar on how to create that page, we'd love to know so we can organize that for you. So if you could just comment if you're interested, that would be wonderful. Thank you. All right, if there's not any questions, we're gonna move over and end the webinar. We're really grateful for everybody's time today, and we hope that you learned something about how to connect other generations of your family together and share great moments about your family history. If you'd like to learn more about what Simone's working on with social media and family history, please make a feedback comment in the bottom left in feedback and suggestions. And any other suggestions or feedback that you have about today's webinar would be great. Next webinar is going to be Friday, August 10th at 4 p.m. We're going to be hearing from Katie Barnes, who is also a graduate of BYU's Family History program, and she'll be talking about what it's like to work as a professional genealogist. And if you have any comments or questions and you don't want to post them here on the webinar, you are always welcome to email us at fhl_webinars@byu.edu. Thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend.